like door 1, door 2, or door 3? Like, do I get to help you? Like, my life mission statement is I want to make stuff that helps people feel better. So I want to make something, there's a creative component. I want it to help people, so I want it to not be just for me. I want someone else to benefit, and I want it to help them feel better because of interacting with something I made. For me, it's like, if you want to book Prison to play a show in your city, if you want me to speak at a conference, or if you want to use CopeNotes for your school district or whatever, for me it makes no difference. Like, I just want to help people. I want to make stuff that helps people feel better. So you pick a door and then I'll use that to, but it's all the same to me. I feel really grateful that I don't have to, because for a long time I wanted to hide the music part of me from the tech world, and I wanted to hide I wanted to hide my recovery from the music world, and now I'm just like, mix it all together. Like, it's all me. The first answer is that I don't feel like I ever really had an aha moment. And in my first TED Talk, I talk about that, how I kept waiting around for that aha moment, and it just kind of never happened. It was actually just really slow and gradual, and like, holy crap, this is taking forever. Am I doing it right? But it was like just incremental, like 1% healthier every week for years and years and years. So I will say that because I don't want someone listening to go, oh, I haven't had my aha moment. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Like, dude, maybe you might not have an aha moment. Like, there's no rule in the book that says that you have to have that.
So welcome to the Brainwaves podcast by Opus, where we sit down with industry leaders to unpack their journeys, explore key challenges, and talk about how they're shaping the future of behavioral health and healthcare technology. I'm your host, Humberto Bunioto, the CEO of Opus, and today we're going to be talking about innovative approaches to improving mental health access and engagement, especially through digital and low-barrier tools. Our guest today is Johnny Crowder, the founder and CEO of CopeNotes, a daily text-based mental health support service grounded in positive psychology and peer support. A suicide and abuse survivor, Johnny spent over a decade navigating the mental health system firsthand, an experience that inspired him to create the kind of daily accessible help he wished he existed back then. Brief, science-backed interventions delivered right to your phone. He's also a Billboard charting metal musician, didn't know that, and passionate mental health advocate known for his TEDx talk and raw, candid storytelling. Today, his work with CopeNotes is changing the lives of thousands of people across 100 countries. Johnny, it's great to have you here. Let's start by maybe hearing from you from perhaps a different perspective of my botched intro here, my bona fides. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to be, I think you call yourself an accidental CEO. I think I read that somewhere. Accidental, maybe. Tell me a little bit about, like, what got you to where you are today, a little bit of background of your story.
Yeah, definitely accidental CEO. My plan A was to be a rock star, and I had no plan B. I still don't. Like, plan A is still to be a rock star to this day. It's just ever since I was a kid, I wanted to make music. And it's funny how when I was younger, I was really struggling with mental illness, but I was undiagnosed, and I didn't want to get diagnosed because I had a fear, like, if I go to talk to someone about it and they diagnose me, then it's real. So I kept trying to like put it off as long as I could, and I didn't want to talk to anybody about my mental health. And now it's like all I do is talk about mental health. So I sort of make the joke that, like, that famous Tupac quote, "I didn't choose the thug life."
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't choose to work in mental health. I feel like mental health chose me. So even today, I'm 7.5 years into being the CEO of a mental health technology company. And still to this day, I'm just a rock star wannabe who grew up with mental health conditions, who got like siphoned into this world of advocacy and ministry. And I don't regret a single day of it, but I always try to tell people, like, I am a lived experience. I'm a peer first. Like, before I set out to help anybody, before I got a psych degree, before I got my certification as a peer specialist, I was just a kid with behavior issues. So I think at heart, like, underneath all of the credentials and titles, I still feel like that kid who was struggling and needed help. So whenever we do anything, any big project, whether it's with a school district or a government, I just think about, like, how many little Johnnies are out there who need support,
And I guess when you do these projects now, and then, I think it's top of mind for most people, like, we're wanting to have kids soon, and it's always been top of mind for me, like what is, exposure to social media and just all the things that are happening. Like it's kind of crazy, like to think of when I grew up, kind of how things were. Like I didn't have a cell phone, there was no internet, there was just like playing on the streets and getting hurt and coming home and crying, whatever. Um, how is like now that you've become this kind of role model for kids out there and for just people generally, struggling with mental health issues, and they look up to you, and like you've become a kind of a, well, how do you see, like, are there any parallels between when you realize you needed help and kind of what you're seeing now with people that you're trying to help? In terms, like, I guess, when does somebody realize, when do you, what is needed for somebody to kind of look for help? What was the thing for you, and how do you see that kind of playing out now with people that you help?
I mean, I didn't want to go to treatment. I ran away from home.
Mm.
And then
How old are you?
inevitably, I was 16, so I had just got my license, and I ran away from home, but I'm dating myself a little bit, but I didn't have I didn't have a smartphone, right? And I didn't print out MapQuest directions before I drove. So I had no idea where I was driving. I had no money because I was 16. So I eventually had to go home. I mean, I slept in my car for one night and then came home because I was starving and lost. I had to stop and ask for directions at a gas station. And like, how do I even get back to my house? And when I went back, my mom was basically like, either I can drive you to the hospital and you can sit in the front seat, or the police can drive you to the hospital and you can sit in the back seat. But like we're gonna deal with this one way or the other. And I never want to, I think when people hear my story, they're like, yeah, Johnny just woke up one day and decided enough is enough. I'm going to heal. That's not what happened. Like I felt like I was being dragged kicking and screaming into treatment. So
Mm,
it took me, I didn't really participate in my own recovery for probably the first whole year.
wow.
For months, I was not cooperating with my clinicians. I was like pretending I was fine when I wasn't. I was interpreting diagnoses as insults. So I think now what we're seeing is there's still social stigma, but there's less. So for example, I was afraid to tell people when I was 16 years old that I was going to therapy or taking medication. Now it's like I'll be in conversation at a conference, someone like, oh yeah, my therapist said this the other day and it made me think of this. Like it's nothing,
Yeah,
dude.
it's
And
true.
that to me, I think the willingness of people to be receptive to support and care now versus uh what was that, 17 years ago, for me, it's night and day. So I'm not saying that stigma has magically disappeared, but I am saying that the social climate is much more open to this. And I think that while there is still more work to do, it gives me hope to see people less judgy and standoffish when it comes to mental health and more understanding of the idea that it affects everybody just in different ways and to different degrees.
Makes sense. So you go through, I guess you said the first year you were not really engaged. At what point? And I'm not in recovery, so I don't. It's, like, I ask these questions in kind of uninformed way, just because it's very interesting to me. Like I always ask, like, what's the aha moment for you when you're like,
Mhm.
this is actually going to help me in a long term, or whatever the click was at the time. What was the thing for you that kind of put you on the path, on a different path?
Yeah, I have a few different answers to this. I'll keep them each short, but I think they're all related. The first answer is that I don't feel like I ever really had an aha moment. And in
Mm,
my first TED talk, I talk about that, how I kept waiting around for that aha moment and it just kind of never happened. It was actually just really slow and gradual and like, holy crap, this is taking forever. Am I doing it right? But it was like just incremental, like 1% healthier every week for years and years and years. So I will say that because I don't want someone listening to go, oh, I haven't had my aha moment.
mm,
Maybe I'm doing it wrong. Like, dude, maybe you might not have an aha moment. Like, there's no rule in the book that says that you have to have that.
yeah.
So just tiny incremental progress is still recovery, even if it doesn't feel as shiny and make for as good of a story. So I want to tell people that. But there was one point where I remember I was talking to my partner at the time. It was my girlfriend. This was I was in my early 20s. So this was pretty, I had already been in therapy and had been making progress. I was medicated, but I was still struggling with a lot. And I remember my girlfriend had shared, we had been together for like a year. So I'd like to think I could read her well enough to know what was wrong. And one day we were saying goodnight and she started crying. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I
Mm,
thought we had a great night. Maybe
yeah.
I misread the situation. What's going on? She said, I just am so scared when I say goodnight to you because I'm afraid that I'm going to get a call the next morning from the police or from your mom that says that you're not alive anymore. And it's just, she's like, it's hard to go to sleep when I get home and I worry about you. And she didn't say like, do you have any idea how hard this is for
Yeah.
me? Like, that's not how she framed it. She just sort of opened up to me and shared like she's experiencing emotional distress because of the emotional distress I was experiencing. And I remember thinking like, okay, my depression and my anxiety and my anger, like all of these things that are bothering me, they can hurt me all day. Cause I self-harmed for a long time. So I was like, I don't care if it hurts me, but if it lays a finger on this person that I love,
Interesting.
now it's war. Like this means war. And I
So you
remember
kind of
this,
normalized like it causing harm to you, but the second it became somebody else's problem, because she said that, you're like,
yeah.
I didn't realize that it like went way beyond me, and that I'm not going to stand.
Dude, it's such like I try not to think I don't fit into the most gender roly stereotype, but in this moment, that's the most macho man, like, protect and provide. Like I'm supposed to protect my loved ones. And I remember this like sort of caveman in me that was like, Ooga,
Yeah,
like you will not touch, this is my woman. And I really, it made me start taking my recovery so much more seriously because I didn't realize it was hurting me so much that I didn't realize what it was costing the people around me. And I'm so proud of her for saying that because a lot of people, we haven't talked in a long time, but I feel like if we did talk again, I would tell her like I'm so proud of you for saying that because I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, I don't want to put something else on his shoulders because he's probably dealing with so much." But her sharing that really woke something up in me that it wasn't just costing me something; it was costing the people I love something too.
very interesting. So to the aha moment I asked before, it's actually kind of personal to me. So my wife and I, we lost my wife was 31 weeks pregnant 4 months ago, and we lost our baby daughter.
Mm,
And we obviously devastated, I mean, she was a person. So to us, it's been right really hard to deal with.
yeah,
And for the first time in my life, I'm going to be 44 this year. We agreed, let's go to therapy together. And I think we've had um, like 4 or 5 sessions. And I've always been skeptical, as guys are like, oh, I don't need it. I can internalize my problems, just push them down, and I deal with it. I've always been kind of not skeptical, but I've always thought like I don't have enough problems to justify talking to a therapist, right? And as we're going through the sessions, every time we get out of a session, she's like, "How do you think it went?" I'm like, "I'm not getting anything out of it." Right. And even
mm,
as early as like 2, 3 weeks ago, we had this conversation, and I realized that what I've been looking for, just like hearing from you now, is an aha moment that maybe not is not going to come, because it's a long process of small incremental things that you're working through that eventually is going to make you better. But it's not going to be like, oh, she said something that now I'm sold. It's not the way it works, and it
dude.
takes hearing from somebody like that's been through uh, it a long time, like my wife. She's been in therapy personally a long time. Like, oh, okay, that's how it works. But I'm like so resistant to it.
Yeah, the example that I use in my first TED talk is like physical exercise. You wouldn't go up to The Rock, like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, like super swole, and go like, "Tell us about the one push-up you did
I know.
that just got you into the shape you're in today." Like we know he couldn't look back and point at a single workout ever.
Yeah,
It was
that's true.
never, and it was never even a certain season of dieting or a certain season of lifting. He's like, I don't know, it's kind of all of it. It's like the sleep and the food and the not only how you prepare the food, but then when you eat the food and then when you work out. It's like I can't pinpoint any single part of it, but in movies when we watch compilations or we watch, you have to cram a whole arc into an hour and a half. So we see someone go to a couples therapy session and they leave and they're like, I'm liberated. And it's like, dude, I've been to a lot of therapy sessions. Almost none of them have left with me walking out going like, aha,
Yeah, yeah.
maybe that does happen to some people, but it's not all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I guess you're about 16 when you started getting help.
Yeah.
Then you continue to do that, and then at what point do you say, this thing is missing, like people need help outside of their therapy sessions? Like, what was the thing that made you think I got to start a company to solve for this one problem?
Yeah, I will also be very clear. I didn't mean to start a company. So what I wanted to do, this was originally, it was like a volunteer project. It was a thing on the side. So I had benefited from peer support, which is like someone with lived experience with a behavioral health condition helping somebody else. That's it. Like I'm not a doctor. So in fact, the original version of CopeNotes was called Not a Therapist. And
Really?
the whole point of it was like, no, you're not talking to a therapist. Because a lot of people would say, I don't want to go to therapy. And I'm like, you don't have to. Like, just talk to someone who, when you tell them what you're going through, they'll go, I know. That's it. Just that empathy, someone understanding. And I remember I was on tour with my band and we're like in a different city every night. And I was having these conversations with fans in every city about my lyrics and how they related to my recovery and then how people could relate. I'm like, wow, this is so powerful. Like just people talking to each other, understanding each other. So I started doing like little peer support groups that then turned into like, this is pre-telehealth. So this is pretty dang early. Then it was like chat. It was sort of like book a session with a peer support person, like just chat with somebody who understands what you're going through. And then eventually that led to like a text messaging feature of that spiraled off into CopeNotes. So my whole dream was like, I want to be there. This was the core idea that I think led to the gap that CopeNotes fills is I think about who I call the in-betweeners. So these are the people who fall into the gaps in the continuum of care. And I put them into three main buckets. So there are people who aren't quite yet ready for therapy or medication or to take that first big step. Then there's people who may have taken that big step but need help between sessions, or maybe they showed up 6 or 7 times and they're like, I'm going to skip a week here and there. They're like not adhering. And then there's the aftercare folks. So these are people who maybe you spent, like I was medicated for 11 years and I was in treatment seeing a clinician once a week for like well over a decade. And then I have to adjust to my new normal. Like now I'm in my, right now I'm 32 years old and I'm like, okay, how do I live a life where I don't have to see a clinician every week? Like, what does that transition look like now that I have to be an adult by myself? So all of these people are the in-betweeners. They don't fit neatly into this category or that category. We're sort of in these like big catch-all, like those are the people that I feel like I've always been. I was never like, I'm finally ready for therapy and I'm
Yeah.
showing up every week. And then
Yeah, it's
I'm
not modular. Like we're not
yeah.
widgets, right? So it's not things don't just happen like I imagined.
Yep.
It's a lot more
Yeah.
nuanced than that.
So my dream was basically to create some type of support for the in-betweeners because I always felt like one.
Got it. And so what did you do? Like, how did you go about it? Like you said, it was a project. Were you helping somebody initially? Like, did you come up with the idea somebody was executing? How did it
Dude,
happen? Like, because I'm very interested in like people always come to me, I guess, because what I do, and they're like, "Oh, I have this idea. What do you think?" And I always tell them like the difference between you and the Mark Zuckerberg is that he did it and you're going to be thinking about it, telling me, telling the other
yeah.
people. So I'm always interested in like what are the steps you take to actually create something. And sometimes it's not a company, but it ends up being one. Opus
Yeah.
is one. Like we weren't supposed to be a product. We were created for a treatment facility, and then look, we've created enough value that we can now sell it. But for you, what was that process like? How did you? What were first steps, first days?
Yeah, dude, it was messy and sketchy. Like it was the first project, the first version of this was called Better People. And it was like, I couldn't even get a library to rent us a room to meet for a peer support group in. Like, it was so illegitimate. Like, I didn't even have a website. It was like so hard to get it off the ground. And keep in mind, at the time, I'm like 23 or something. So like very little credibility. And then around when I was 24, I started working on Not a Therapist. And that was like a more legitimate, like at least there was a website, at least there was a booking portal where you could book a chat. But these people were booking a chat with me because I couldn't get anybody to work for me or help me. I tried to get this funded by nonprofits that I was volunteering at. I'm like, hey, can we do this under your umbrella and put it on your website? And I just couldn't find buy-in. So CopeNotes was like, I was like, I'm just gonna try this thing on my own. And it was literally like went to GoDaddy and bought a domain name for like $12. And then I mean it was like spreadsheets like on
So
Google
somehow
Sheets.
getting the domain gives you like the energy to like convince yourself that you made progress, but all you really did is spend $12 on.
Yeah, man. And I built the website myself. I designed the logo myself. I did so much of it myself. And I just wanted to see what it could become. And I had no intention of making it. Like, I remember I made it an LLC because I tried to make it a nonprofit and I met with a nonprofit lawyer and they were like, don't do this. Like,
Mm.
you have no idea what you are getting yourself
Oh,
into.
the
Because I'd
scrutiny
volunteered.
and yeah.
Dude, I had volunteered with nonprofits forever. So I thought I'll make this a nonprofit. And they were like, you want to know why there's not a lot of technology nonprofits? Because technology companies have to pivot quickly. They have to, if you want to make a change today and you're sending people text messages every single day, you don't want to wait 6 months for board approval and submit minutes to the IRS and have to get stuff voted on. Like, if you need to make a change, you want to make it today so people are impacted by it tomorrow. And so, on their advice, I made it an LLC, and then I'm like, crap, what do I do now? So I made it a website. I knew that I wanted it to be affordable. So originally we had no enterprise plans. It was all direct to consumer. And so it was $10 a month. And we wanted to make a full year of it cost less than one therapy session. So we wanted to make it really cost effective. And we've stayed true to that. Even now we're 7.5 years in and we've stayed true to that mission. So originally it was like, now we have maybe 40 or 50,000 people that we're serving every day. But I remember when it was like, it took like 4 months to get 25 people to sign up. I remember because I celebrated like 25 people, and now 25 people might sign up while we're having this conversation
Yeah.
together and I won't even notice. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It is very interesting that you can create that kind of like mass adoption from a platform that people get value out of because they know about it now. But the very early stages, even if the value that it delivered back then, I'm sure it's different now. I'm sure they're getting more out of it now. But even if it was the same, because it's not a public domain idea, it's so hard to get people to sign up because they're just like, I don't know, like I'm doing you a favor. But now it's like, yeah, of
Yeah.
course I want to have this because everybody else I know uses it. So yeah, I'm going to sign up. It's worth it, right?
Yeah, the hard part I tell people is like, so I think there are a lot of definitions for entrepreneur. When I think of the term entrepreneur, I don't think, and I don't mean to belittle anybody who's like doing a traditional business model. So like if you are a real estate agent, if you run a marketing firm, like if you own a cupcake shop, like you are an entrepreneur still. But my entrepreneurship experience in the startup world, what makes it different is like if you're selling cupcakes, you say, I have a cupcake shop, and everybody knows what cupcakes are. So your marketing is basically done. Everyone understands exactly what you have. But if you're inventing something, like we invented a, a mobile health intervention, like we had to do research studies to publish in medical journals that it's evidence based. Like you don't have to do crap to sell a cupcake. Like everyone gets it. So I think the hard part for us was like inventing something and then trying to explain to people what it is and the value. Like imagine if you created a dessert that you couldn't say, oh, it's like a cookie or it's like ice cream. You're like, I don't even know what it's like. I have to explain this brand new concept to you. Most people would be like, I'm just going to go to a cupcake shop. So it's
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
tricky to explain to people, especially in those first few years, here's my idea. Cause they're like, I don't get it. Cause I've never heard of something like
Yeah. Yeah. And still like, I guess now with AI, it's becoming even more and more difficult because there are so many concepts that we never even imagined before that people are putting in place, right? Like I was at West Coast Symposium 2 weeks ago, and there was a company that was doing like based or text-based admissions or voice-based admissions or something like that. There was another company that was doing like automation on the billing side of things, and to some extent, they had to kind of explain to me in layman's terms, like, what exactly are you trying to do? Because I didn't really get it. But I know a year from now, I was going to be like, yeah, of course, that's a great idea. Why didn't
Yeah.
somebody think of it before? But what you mean is like being an innovator is different than just being an entrepreneur. You're like copying a business model that's proven tried and true to be,
Yeah.
successful, right?
Dude, and I think there's it's grass is greener because like I know people who have traditional business models who are like, oh, I wish I invented something. And I'm like, dude, I wish I sold cupcakes.
Yeah,
I wish
exactly.
this sounds amazing. So, but I am grateful that it has the real benefit of being someone with lived experience and like living in recovery and then doing this work is that I'm leveraging a quarter century of misery and torment and abuse and illness and just agony, like 25 years of pain. And I'm like transmuting it into something that's bringing peace and wholeness and restoration to all of these people. I will say there's part of me that like my knuckles say save them on my
Yeah,
it's
I
like
see it.
always been my dream. Like I want to help as many people as possible. So there is a selfless part of it, but I want to be clear there's also a selfish part of it. There's something in it for me too, which is I'm taking this awful experience that has constituted on almost my entire life and I am leveraging it. I'm leveraging its momentum and I'm turning it into something beautiful. And there's something really healing about that for me too, not just for the people that we serve.
It's interesting. I was actually talking to somebody early this week about this. I think to some extent, and of course, I think there's kind of, it's not the same for everybody, but there's something to be said about using challenges in life. I'm just using challenge as a broad term for like
Mhm.
difficulty and like what you went through, and people go through all kinds of things to create something because it gives you almost like superpower to do that because you're proving you're it's you against you almost like you're saying I'm not going to let this thing that happened to me, whether it's what you went through, my loss recently, or like things that happen in life. It's interesting that you can take that and catapult yourself into like a different thing. And at least for me, there's very few types of energy that gets me pumped up to get something done
Yeah.
other than like difficulties or challenges that I've had in the past. Like that is the most powerful propellant that I can think of to get something done. That's not to say like you want people to go through difficulty, but when you
Correct.
go through it, it's like, makes you superpower. It gives you that superpower to like really accomplish stuff. Sounds like that's what happened with you.
Yeah,
It's
and I
still
think
happening.
like I think about the what you had shared. I have a friend that's like a couple from church and they've been through multiple miscarriages and when they were going through it, I would go to their house and I'd bring them dinner and we'd just sit there and sometimes we'd talk, sometimes we sit in silence. And I remember thinking like, I don't I just because I haven't been through it, I don't know exactly what to say or what to do. I'm just going to sit with you in it. And then they were telling me when they sat with another couple who was going through their first miscarriage, they were like, we knew what to say. We knew, and they listened to us and we listened to them. And we had this like fellowship and connection immediately. And they were like, that is the authority that loss, that illness, that all of this stuff gives us. It's like, I could walk into a room and a doctor could walk into the same room. Like, think about this. You could walk into a room and then someone who has spent 40 years studying miscarriages in a room,
Mm-hmm.
who's the person experiencing the miscarriage going to want to sit down with and listen to?
100%.
And that's something that you can't buy, you can't earn it, you can't study your way to it. And of course, in an ideal world, none of us experience it. But the fact that you have experienced it, people ascribe that credibility and authority to you. And it's like, if I can use that to breathe some good, to pull some good out of something so awful, then at least there's something to be, even if that loss can't be redeemed, maybe something can be redeemed
For
from it,
sure.
you know?
For sure. So you said this couple from church. So you obviously I see the cross. What is your relationship to religion? How does that play a role in your business, personal life? Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, I never anticipated faith to be a part of my life at all. I like had
Mm.
no interest, did not want to go to church, didn't want to hear about God or anything for
Yep.
the longest time.
And the follow up to what I just asked is like the music and the band and the metal stuff because it's kind of they're kind of counter to each other in a way, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
man.
know, but they might be. I don't know.
Dude, let me tell you this. It is hard to date as like a Christian, sober death metal guy because it's a lot of boxes to be checked for one person, for a girl to be like, "Yeah, I want a Christian, but wait, he has a throat tattoo?" Or like, "I want someone that's super metal, but then like, oh, he doesn't drink?" Like, what? So it's like I'm this weird mix of personality traits, and I do think that I look at faith as the thing that has touched every other area of my life. So I'm a big Jesus guy. Faith touches everything I do. So I wouldn't be building CopeNotes without faith. I wouldn't be doing any form of advocacy without faith. I wouldn't be doing music without it. So like every decision that I make, like it's part of why I work out, is because I want to be a good steward of the body that God has given me. I want to be careful with how I speak to other people. I want to be generous with my time and energy the way that I feel that God has been generous with me. So everything I do is informed by faith. But again, it was not most of the things in my life I feel like I didn't choose. Like I eventually chose through compounded effort to build on those things, but it's not like one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm going to be a Christian. Like most of and just like I said, I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to build a company. Like it's just these little things that started snowballing, and then I started pushing the ball and putting snow on it. So yeah, my 8-year baptism anniversary is next week.
Nice.
So I'm still relatively new to the game. I'm still learning stuff about God all the time where I'm like, what? But my faith has absolutely changed not only the course of my recovery, but also the course of my personal and professional life.
Nice. And tell me a little bit about the band, like metal, like tell me everything. I love music.
Yeah.
I knew that you were uh, involved in music. I didn't know that it was to that extent. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was literally proofing a master of a new single earlier today. So this
Wow.
is like still very much a part of my life. I was in the studio a couple days ago. So yeah, I grew up playing guitar. Started playing guitar when I was 8, I think. I played my first concert when I was 16. I just turned 16, and I actually sing in a band. So I've never played guitar on a stage. Like I started writing and playing guitar when I was young, but I met a band that needed a vocalist, and I'm like, I'll teach myself how to sing. And then I sang in that band. That was a death metal band called Dark Sermon. And I was in that band for like signed to a record label, touring full time. We had CDs in like Best Buy and Target and stuff. We were like doing it. And then we put out a couple records through that record deal, and then my band just kind of they were like, well, we want to like have a job and get married and like have normal lives. And I, a total buffoon, was like, I want to keep making music. I teamed up with a few other musicians. This was back in like 2014. We wrote some music together, just guys from other bands, and then we named that project Prison, which is the band that I'm still in today. And we started touring in that band in 2017. So I basically toured full time until COVID, and then now I'm not touring full time. I'm mostly speaking at conferences and running the company, but then we'll still get to play a festival here and there or something like that. So we might tour more in the future, but for right now, we are focused on writing and recording music.
I read, I was reading some of your posts, and I think obviously 2020 was hard for everybody, but you said 2020 was especially hard for you. You went through a lot of things, a lot of
Yeah.
loss, obviously. You said you were touring up to 2019-ish. Is that what kind of put a pause to that? Was COVID? You just couldn't get out there anymore?
Yeah, man, we had all the biggest tours of my whole life. We had just charted on Billboard. We had just put out like a record where we're like, we're gonna tour on this. We had all our biggest tours of my whole career lined up for 2020. We're like, we're about to have the biggest year of our whole career, and then it was like one after another, tour drop, tour drop, tour drop, and we're like, what's happening? And then of course we didn't tour for like a year and a half, maybe longer. I mean, it was just like we went from playing maybe a couple hundred shows a year to like you wake up in the same city every day, and you're just like, it's like a bullet hitting ballistics gel. So it was really, really challenging mentally and emotionally and creatively. And a lot of musicians struggled. Well, I think a lot of people in live entertainment in general struggled with like, if I can't perform like my primary utility to humanity, do I even have a purpose? Like, why am I
Right.
even alive if I can't do what I feel God created me to do? So it was like a real existential challenge.
And then when did you guys pick that up again? Like what does it look like now? You're like touring somewhat, or and what is like I'm sure like even in the last 5 years, the nature of being a band has changed a lot with Spotify and like
Yeah,
how do you
dude.
like you have to be on the road to make money, I guess, right?
Dude, the music industry has changed so much. I describe it like imagine because I decided I wanted to make music when I was a little kid, like when I was in elementary school. So I describe it to people like imagine when you're 8, you're like, I want to be a doctor. And then you spend 20 years like going to school, watching doctor shows on TV, and then you like go get your bachelor's and then your master's and then your doctorate, and then you do your clinicals, and like you're about to become a doctor. And by the time you become a doctor, the whole medical industry has changed so dramatically
Which
that
is going to, right? It will.
so like your vision that you've had for your whole life, it's like, oh, we don't do that anymore. Like, oh, have a record in a store for what? And it's like, oh, sorry, I'm stuck in 20 years ago because that's where my dream was from. So yeah, the whole music industry has changed, like from albums to singles, from record sales to streaming, from like live shows to now there's more festivals than there are traditional tours. Like just so many, and now it's like so merchandise heavy because they're not selling records, so your band is almost like a little hot topic, like a t-shirt store instead of selling the music. It's just a it's very bittersweet. I love music to death. I'll write it and perform it for as long as I live, but it's definitely changed a lot.
Nice. And how do you, so when you're on the road, you said you were, you know, sometimes you would talk to fans and stuff like that. How are you kind of intersecting your, I guess, access to people when you're on the road, people that you don't know? You meet new people all the time, right? With your project with CopeNotes? Like, how do you leverage that kind of intersection of I have access to all new people all the time? Maybe they think I'm a rock star, I'm doing great, no problems, but they don't know like the history of how I got here. How do you like kind of share that and I guess in a way make it known that it's okay for people to get help kind of thing?
Yeah, that's like the heart of Prison. Like the band, even the band name actually on this arm, that's like our logo, that's the I in Prison, and it's a rest symbol, like a musical rest symbol with a semicolon. So the suicide prevention symbol. So we it's in all our merch, it's in all our lyrics. We always talk to people about like this is what our music is about. We're very upfront. And on stage I'll
So
share.
you guys set out to do this. Like the rest of the band is also kind of, I guess, on have gone through recovery, are in recovery. What's
Yeah.
the, yeah.
Yeah, it's the people in our band have either been directly affected, like in their own life, or a very close friend or family member. So we all are very bought into the mission of trying to make the world a better place through this.
Interesting.
And that's why I look at like, I don't know, man, Prison and Cope Notes and my speaking work is all the same to me. Like I don't even have a
Which
preference.
is an interesting, it's an interesting, I don't know if I would call it a twist, but that's kind of what I think most people are striving for, like to have the thing that you're passionate about also happen to be your work. You know, there's this
Yeah.
saying about like if you do what you love, you don't work a day in your life. But that is an interesting kind of, and maybe it was happenstance because even you said before things just happen, and I just kind of kept pushing that ball down the road, and now I have Cope Notes, now I have this, but
Yeah.
it is an interesting alignment of all these things that through all these different channels you're helping people.
Yeah, to me, it's the same. It's like door one, door two, or door three. Like, do I get to help you? Like, my life mission statement is I want to make stuff that helps people feel better. So I want to make something, there's a creative component. I want it to help people. So I want it to not be just for me. I want someone else to benefit. And I want it to help them feel better because of interacting with something I made. For me, it's like if you want to book Prison to play a show in your city, if you want me to speak at a conference, or if you want to use Cope Notes for your school district or whatever, for me, it makes no difference. Like, I just want to help people. I want to make stuff that helps people feel better. So you pick a door and then I'll use that but it's all the same to me. I feel really grateful that I don't have to, because for a long time I wanted to hide the music part of me from the tech world, and I wanted to hide I wanted to hide my recovery from the music world, and now I'm just like mix it all together. Like it's all me.
I think it's better. Like even if like I think when people listen to this, they're gonna be like this is a guy I can like relate to. He's just a human being, went through things, and is like just trying to figure things out. And he's got all
Yeah.
these different mediums that he tries to help people through. Yeah, I think it helps for you to be open about like this is who I am. There's no like part of me that's not being leveraged to accomplish my goal of, building things to help people.
Yeah, dude, everybody, I believe that the only thing that would make this hard, because sometimes people are like, oh, is it hard to juggle music and speaking and CopeNotes? And I'm like, I guess it would be harder if I had to be a different person for all of those, or if they were all trying to accomplish different things. But if I'm 100% myself in all of those settings and they're all working towards the same goal, then for me, it's like working at an advertising agency and you have 3 accounts. Like in my head, I work at a behavioral health organization, and then there are just 3 main accounts that I work on. That's it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. The TED Talks, how did that come about? Because that's a huge deal, right? To be invited to be a TED speaker, that's huge. Like I met somebody a year and a half ago who coaches TED speakers, and she was telling me like
Yeah.
the whole process and how you don't just like submit a form and like, oh yeah, Johnny, come on in. It's like you got to have a real compelling message, something to talk about that a lot of people want to hear. So how did that come about?
I will agree with you and add some context. So I thought, and I burst a lot of people's bubbles, and that's okay, but I want to burst someone's bubble right now who's thinking like, oh, I could never, who would I have to know to give a TED Talk? Dude, I'm not joking. I filled out an application.
Yeah.
I
So it
Googled
did just
TEDx.
happen the way I thought it didn't happen.
Dude, so, but you do have to get vetted.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
in terms of like, no one sent me I didn't get a phone call that's like, hey, Johnny, you're such a great speaker. You should give a TED Talk. Nothing like that. I literally Googled TEDx organizations in Florida or whatever. And then I just filled out applications and I said, here's what I want to talk about. Here's my vision for a talk. And I had already been speaking for years. So I was like, I had outlines ready and I pitched some titles, and not every, like I've submitted applications that I never even heard back from. So it's not like I've given 2 TED Talks. One of the times I filled out an application. One of the times I was invited by the organizer directly. It was after I had already given one. And then a few other times I submitted an application, just never heard back. They just totally ghosted me. I guess it wasn't impressive enough. So I want to be clear to people, like, you can just apply. Like, I can't guarantee someone will respond, but it's not like you have to be famous or have to know somebody, at least not in my experience. So what happened the first time was I submitted an application, and then I think I did like an interview, and I sort of told them about my idea and stuff. And then they had to whittle it down. Like, I don't know, let's say 100 people apply, and then they're only going to let 12 people talk or something. So I have to interview all those people. But the hard part for me was, and I distinctly remember, it's funny that I'm saying I distinctly remember this because I had a big issue with memorizing my talk. So
Oh man,
whenever I
that's got to
speak
be
on
like,
stage,
yeah, super hard.
dude, when I speak on stage, I speak from an outline, like bullet points. So I have a background in like improv comedy. So I taught and
Nice.
performed improv comedy for a long time. And I preferred that to sketch because with improv, I didn't have to memorize anything. And I have memory loss I've been off medication for 9 years, but I was medicated for 11 years. So I have like memory issues from taking medication for a long time. So it's difficult for me to memorize things. And so when I'm doing my TED Talk, they're like, you have to memorize an 18-minute talk. And I'm like, I can't. Give me a teleprompter, give me something. And they were like, no. So I had to memorize an 18-minute talk, and it took me like 6 months to memorize it. I would literally play it like at the gym on repeat and just try to sing along to it like a song. It was exhausting. So was it worth it? 100%. It was like such a bucket list thing for me. As a professional speaker for over a decade, I've always wanted to give a TED Talk. But I will say, first of all, they don't pay you. And second of all, it's hard work. You're doing it's like getting a part-time job that you don't get paid for. And it's a lot of pressure. I'm so glad I did it. It's opened a lot of doors. It's helped a lot of people. But I always am clear with people, like, if you take it seriously, which you don't have to, you could phone it in, I guess. But if you really want to treat it like the opportunity it is, it's a lift.
Because it's kind of like people have like an 18-minute window into Johnny that, most people watching your TED Talk are never going to get to talk to you or like text with you or like be your friend. They're just going to get that one window of his perspective, how he sees the world, his background, and you got to kind of cram it. 18 minutes sounds like a lot, but you kind of have to cram it. We've been talking for almost an hour now, and you kind of have to cram it all into like very,
Yep.
specific. Yeah, and I'm always interested in like successful public speakers because it's something that I've been wanting to get into personally. And I just like, I'm very good conversationally with people. Like we could talk for a long time. I can like come up with different things for us to talk about no matter what it is, but I don't know that I would be good on stage. with something, I'm sure I could figure it out. But I'm always interested in the process of like delivering a really good speech. Like we went to this conference called Base in Miami. I don't know if you were there or not. It was like 4 months ago, and Kevin O'Leary, the shark from Shark Tank, spoke.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, he's amazing, whatever. And in the beginning, I was like, all right, he's okay. Like, okay, I'm a little bit starstruck because he's Kevin O'Leary. He's on stage. We're 50 feet away from him. But then he started to like string things together. I'm like, man, it's almost like a comedy special. It all came
Yeah.
together after, like kind of like a Seinfeld where they like he'll say something here and then
Yeah.
he'll stitch back at the end. I was like, man, like that's an art. You don't just get up on stage and tell your story and people are like, oh, this is amazing. It takes a lot of work. Even though I haven't done it, just hearing from you and people that I know that have done a lot of stage work, it's like a lot.
Yeah.
It's an art for sure.
Yeah, it's something that everyone assumes they can do. And on a very high level, most people can talk. Like the same is true with cooking or singing. People are like, "Oh, I can cook or I can sing a tune." It's like, yeah, most people can do like 80% of cooking or singing. But the 20% is where like you ever see a chef, a real chef, like on a TV show or something, you're like, "What is he doing?" Like
I know.
I don't even know the tool or the ingredients he's using. Like when you see that top 20%, you're like, wow, I don't know how to cook. And sometimes I see a speaker like that where I see someone, I'm like, that's how I want to speak. Like that guy's a real freaking speaker, not like oh, I speak on the weekends at some fundraiser just for fun, but someone who has clearly studied this for like a quarter century. I'm like, that I want to be that.
And pretty much in any profession, any trade, you know you have the best of the best when you see it, even if you don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Right? Like I don't cook. I hate cooking. Do I wish that I knew how to cook? Yes, I would because I'd love to because it'd be nice to like make something for us and like knowing what goes
Yeah.
into it and stuff. I'd love to know how to play music.
Yeah.
I'm never going to bring myself to it just because I guess I don't have the discipline, but maybe someday. But I remember like when I saw, I'm not a sports fan, but I first started learning about football. I'm not originally from the US, so it wasn't like a thing that I grew up with. And I started learning about it. And then I saw like Tom Brady play one day back in the day. And I was like, somehow I know this guy, even though like I didn't know his
Yeah.
whole background, I knew like this guy is the GOAT for sure. So
Yeah.
you got the best of the best, even if you don't know the thing itself.
Totally.
All right. So I think we're promised that I was going to let you go before 4. So I think what we would like to do is ask you first. I wanted to know if you have any book recommendations or any podcast recommendations, things that are top of mind to you that you think people should read or know about.
Yeah, I have some very specific ones. So if they don't apply to you, that's okay.
All right.
But a few that come to mind, I'll say one podcast that I recommend is called Questioning Christianity.
Okay.
It's awesome.
I'm
It
going to look it
is
up.
a series of talks/conversations that a pastor named Timothy Keller has. I think he's on campus at like Harvard or something at some university where he's talking to like ethics and philosophy students and world religion students, just and asking really difficult questions about Christianity, really trying to wrap your head around like, what is it? What does it mean? It's great for people who are natural born skeptics, which is me. So I strongly recommend if you're like, I don't know
Thank
about
you.
Christianity, it's fascinating. Even if you don't agree with Christianity or don't believe in Jesus, it's still an awesome listen. Another thing I would recommend is a book called Whole Again. And this book has helped me tremendously. So I am currently healing from a relationship with someone who had borderline personality disorder. It was a very unique challenge. And this book is about how to heal from a relationship with someone who has a personality disorder, like processing some of the damage that has created psychologically and healing from that. So that book is excellent. One of the best I've read in the healing genre. And then I'll also recommend, if neither of those apply to you or you're not interested in those, I would say the book that's probably good for everybody is called The Art of Happiness. It is a cheesy title, and I know that. I didn't title the book.
Is it The
But
Art of Happiness, ART?
Yep, The Art of Happiness. And it's a series of conversations between, I believe, a psychotherapist and the Dalai Lama.
Mm.
about like the nature of contentment and forgiveness and just fulfillment. There's so many incredible parts of that book, and it's not a dense read. It's like a surprisingly easy read, but those are the three things that come to mind that I would recommend. Yeah, man. Dr. Cutler. Yeah, strongly recommend.
Where can people find Johnny? Like your companies, your band, yourself. Where can people find you in the on the internets?
Yeah. JohnnyCrowder.com is all of my speaking stuff. CopeNotes.com is all the CopeNotes stuff. If you want to try it, I strongly recommend just trying it. You can try it for free. You don't have to pay anything. You can also give a subscription to a friend or family member, and you can also use it for like your work or your school or your healthcare organization, your government, whoever. So please go to CopeNotes.com and learn about that stuff. My band is called Prison, Prison, like a
Already
jail.
looked it up. Yep.
Yeah, we're on Spotify, Apple Music. We have music videos on YouTube. Enjoy. That's like my whole heart. And then on socials, I'm surprisingly active on LinkedIn. I never saw myself using LinkedIn, but here we are. And then on Facebook and Instagram, my name is Johnny Crowder on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then on Instagram, my handle is Johnny Crowder Loves You, because I do.
Nice. Awesome. And we're going to link all those on the bottom here in the description. Johnny, it was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for making time to be here today. Loved the story. Loved all the things we talked about. Hoping I run into you at one of these conferences someday, so we can chat a little more. Yeah. Thanks for being here again.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it.